really exciting. We're here to celebrate Black culture in the East End, and it wouldn't be a celebration without all of you. So thank you for participating. Thank you so much for all of your support. We're live here with Sujay, and we are going to celebrate history, celebrate culture, celebrate our ever-loving spirit for our community. So I want to thank our sponsors because, of course, we could not do this without some support. And we have our Azurest Property Owners Association that has helped out, Charisma Speakers, Frizz-Bit Vodka Soda, Global Black Women's Chamber of Commerce, Hilux Vitamin Enhanced Water, J. Foster Phillips Funeral Home, New England Sweetwater Farm Distillery, Schiavone's Markets, and Women on the World Stage. And I really would like to ask you to enjoy yourselves tonight. And I'm going to turn it over and introduce our host. Some call her the Oprah of the East, the Oprah of Sag Harbor. She is an ambassador. She served under the Clinton and the Obama administration. She is an author. She is a pastor. She's an activist. She's an all woman, I will say. And so, do we have our Sujay with us? Our ambassador, Ambassador Sujay, come on up.
Hey! Hey, everybody! How you doing? How you doing? All right, let's get some love up in here. So we are so excited to have you tonight. You know, this is a joy, it's a dream, and we are celebrating ourselves. And I am a wonderful resident of the village of Sag Harbor, and I am so glad to be here with you. We're not going to delay tonight. This is a benefit for the Global Black Women's Chamber of Commerce of advancing Black women business all over the world. Many of our residents are members, and tonight you're going to be part of the whole celebration. Part of tonight is we have Lady DJ, Lady Keena Marcel.
DJ K. Marcel in the building, y'all.
From the Boogie Down Bronx. This is the 50th anniversary of hip hop, and you know we have to have a party out here. Am I right about it? And so we're so excited to have her. And we're going to get started. We have 3 dynamic women. Come on up today. Let's greet them from Eastville, from Southampton African American Museum. Come on. Georgette, and from our own Azurest, our historian, Maria De La Gloria. Y'all can do better than that. Let's do it. Woo. So what you can do tonight also is you can dance in between segments. We're going to have 2 segments for each show. And this is not like your normal TV. You know, we're all the way live and in living color, okay? So you can dance. We got Buttons in here. She always leads the dance. And where's Cheryl McNeil? She's a dancer as well. But we have so many of our residents that we are here today, and we're going to get started. So we're going to start with the history of Blacks on Long Island on the East End, and we have historians with us. We have those who curate and those who make sure that our art and our history are archived. So we're going to start with our own Maria De Longoria, and she is our resident historian. She is a history major, a history professor, and she lives in a wonderful section of Azurest in the village of Sag Harbor. Maria, why is our history even important?
Okay, let's start with just why history is important.
Yes,
right?
let's
because
do it there.
Because a lot of times when people think about history, they think of boring facts, right? They think of old dates of wars, and they get turned off, right? There's really no enticement. There's not a strong level of interest. But one of the things I think that people don't understand is that history teaches us not only who we are, but why we are the way we are, why we do the things we do, how we live, right? How we interact with other people. And it's not just what happened in the past, right? So we learn from that, but it's also how we move now and how we move going forward. And I think if we look at what's going on now in the world, right, it's even more important to understand and learn the lessons. Things that are happening now are not new, right? They've happened before. And so if you understand history and you understand how they did things, then we would not be so surprised that things are being done all over again in some of the same ways, right? And, you know,
So in Brooklyn, they have this terminology, Sankofa, that in the only way to go forward is to make sure you go back and understand your history.
Yes.
So talk to us about going back and how long you've been in the East End yourself.
Well, then I'm gonna have to tell you how old I am, and I don't want to do that.
No, well, give us an
But
estimate, guesstimate.
I will tell you how long my mother and my grandparents were here. My grandparents started coming in the early 40s, and they would stay in the Harris cottages. And I know we have some Harris family members out there, right? The Butlers, but most of the people who came in when they were vacationing, stayed in the Harris cottages.
Awesome.
And I think, and see, that's also what's important. A lot of people don't understand that we were and are everywhere and have been, right, everywhere. And when our voice isn't part of telling the story, we get marginalized if we're even included.
Certainly. So let me go to Brenda Simmons. Now, you have established the Southampton African American Museum, or SAM. And tell us, it's the first historical institution for African Americans in Southampton.
Yes, it is. It's actually the first African American site to be historically designated in the village of Southampton, and it's the first Black barbershop to be transformed into a museum in the country.
Oh my goodness, let's give her a hand on that. You can applaud, this is all right, this is live. Wow. And it wasn't like overnight. It was how many years? Well, almost 20 years in the making?
16 plus years in the making, a labor of love.
Wow.
But I was determined to make sure we left a legacy in the village of the Hamptons, the Hamptons.
Yes, thank you. And Georgette, how are you today?
I'm doing fine. So happy to see everybody here looking beautiful.
Greer Keys. And so we're happy to have you. So you're an executive director and a curator of Eastville. So what is a curator? What does a curator do? What do you curate?
Well, you know what? You start off with a theme, right? And then when you look at the theme, you say, well, what artists need to be involved? What medium are you going to use? How do you tell that story? So it's really looking at the overall history that we do not often see, which is normally subjugated. And for us, we happen to be very fortunate to have Michael A. Butler, who is our artist in resident for the whole East End. And what he's been able to do is to look at the historic record in our oral history and recreate those stories that we have a visual, because we're not usually in a built environment and we're not visual. We often appear only in documents only. And for us, we want to make sure that if you can see it, you can be it. And so that's what's been really important for us at Eastville, to make sure that the whole story is being included in American history.
We love that. If you can see, you can be it in the whole story. So that's my bench over there when I was dedicated. All of our village came out actually when I became ambassador, and it's the only living person and the only Black person on Main Street, in front of 42 Main Street. But it was so important for us to say that someone is alive that's part of our village, but we also have living history amongst us. And in our second segment, we're going to look at living history. If someone were visiting Southampton, besides the museum, where else would you ask them to stop to learn about African Americans?
I would ask him to stop at the Pierce concert. Unfortunately, the building, his homestead is not there, but Pond Lane is an historical place. A gentleman named Pierce Concert, born March 17, 1814, as a slave, taken away from his mom at 5 years old and sold to work on a farm, but became an entrepreneur and a philanthropist.
Wow.
So I would definitely stop by the museum, and I'll give you a personal tour.
And you're working with that as well, Dr. Kears, right?
Yes, we're working to re-erect the Pierce Concert Homestead. That property is so immensely important. When we think about slavery here in the North, we got a past in the history books. But this doesn't allow us to escape, because we not only know Pierce Concert, who is so significant to us on the East End, we know his first, his last name, we know his parents, we know his grandparents. And in fact, that land was basically, passed down to him. So what an amazing story to have someone that can speak to all of the history of the East End. And he has a fund that is still going on in the Presbyterian Church all these 200-something years later.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we want to thank LTV for tonight as well, Michael Clark and all of those who are part of the board. But we had the 75th anniversary, Maria, of As Your Rest last year, and they've been running the video of our 75th anniversary. You were part of that, Maria, and your generation, I watched you and all of your friends who grew up together. You're one of the closest knit groups I've ever seen. But what was it like from childhood to now, and what are your memories in terms of being raised out here?
So
You might.
I'm sorry. We are a very tight group of folks. In fact, people have said that we are a tough nut to crack, right? If you're coming from the outside and either dating in or marrying in or what have you, they always say that we're kind of a tough group, right? But that's because we bonded so well over the years. And we're more like family, right, than just friends who grew up together. We go back generations in our relationships, in our connections. And I think that is what made this place so special, but particularly for me. And, you know, I did like others often do. You grow up and you're here and you love it, and then all of a sudden you get to be 17, 18, you don't want to come out as much anymore, and you're doing other things, you're hanging in the city, you're hanging with your friends, but then you always come back full circle. And it's nice to know that you can come back full circle, and you still got your village, you still have your crew, right? Your crew is still around.
Yeah, and I want to thank you as a co-chair for this event, and Crystal, who introduced me tonight, is also a co-chair. And Crystal and her husband met out here,
Yes.
and married, and so now they have a family, triplets. And Alan Brown, we want to give him a shout out today, is our production assistant. So let's give Alan a hand tonight as well. A senior at Morehouse, and we are so excited for all who work here. So tell me, Maria, in terms of history for you, now there's a project that's being worked on. You knew the story of Moateri, but were there other names that we needed to know that have not been celebrated yet?
There's a whole crew of folks that were part of the building up and right in the establishment and buying the properties. And there are a lot of families that are still here that were part of that original group. They were, I think it was maybe in the 90s. Azurest did a celebration where they honored a lot of the founding residents who were still alive.
That's awesome. And in our next segment, 4 of your parents, including your mother, who all of you who are friends, but your parents are still alive as well, and they're living legends. And we're going to be interviewing some of them as well, which is exciting.
Yeah.
What do you want through history, Brenda? What do you want to tell this generation now in terms of why it's important to visit Sam and why it's important to even know history of Southampton?
You know, because I think when I travel, people ask me, where are you from? And I tell them from New York, and they automatically think I'm from New York City. When I tell them I'm from the Hamptons, they look real crazy. They're like, they look at me, and they say, you're from the Hamptons? It's like, yes. So I think it's important for us to know our history, and it's important for the young people to know how much history and how much legacy was left there in South, and what the contributions were that we made in the village of Southampton.
So, Dr. Georgette, so we've come to Eastville Fish Fry, the AME Zion Church that was there. And everything's intergenerational, which is wonderful. So if you're just eating your fish, you're learning history there. What stands out for you in terms of the village coming together at Eastville?
I mean, there's no other feeling like it. It's like Maria said, an extended big family. One of the things that we were trying to say, it's like that perfume bottle. How do you capture this essence? And that's the same thing with community. You know, the late, great Mr. Pickens used to always say, you know, there's unity in community. And I think if there's anything that I've learned over the past couple of years is that sense of community. And how do you describe that? It's the place where you most feel comfortable and welcome. Even during a time where there was high segregation and Jim Crow, there was a place for people to feel comfortable, to fully be themselves, and also to realize that American dream that so many people do not have in their reach today. So just honoring that legacy of being able to make a dream, receive it, and still have it, that you have a second home under the sun where you can have respite and love your neighbors and your family members.
And I love it about capturing the essence. And we want to capture your essence, and you've been so wonderful in this segment. And we want to capture this. It's going to be on video. This show will be shown several times on LTV, channel 20 and 22. And we want you to also, we had an opportunity, to speak with the late Bill Pickens, and we have him on tape. So we want to capture your essence. And thank you for sharing tonight this wonderful history. We wish you well. We'll be visiting all of your sites. And thank you, my co-chair, for being part of it. Thank you. Can you join me in giving a hand to our wonderful, wonderful panel?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Lady K, take it away. Won't you join me in welcoming living legends, our icons, our queens of the East End? Come on, welcome. From my right, your left, the Honorable Virginia Arrington. Next to her is Clotilde Stinson. Next to her is Andrea Cotman. And Pamela de Longoria. Well, thank you. First of all, y'all looking snazzy. I'm gonna just give you the mic and I'm gonna switch seats with you tonight. Thank you for joining us. So I'm gonna start with you, Virginia Arrington, Azurest resident, have been here for several decades now, celebrated your 40th wedding anniversary out of here, raised your children and family, now grandchild out here. What is a highlight for you of being a member of the East End?
Well, I feel
Speak right to the mic.
Being a member of Azurest community for the past 50 years, and as you said, raised my children here, and I've had several social functions and everything like that. But I think of Azurest as a family, an extended family, one big extended family, because it goes back to like 4 to 5 generations.
Yes.
And when I first came, I renewed a lot of my friendships with people that I grew up with, and we built our house here, and we made new friends. But also, I could sit back and say, like, my daughters grew up here. They have friends that they met here. Some of them went to schools together, to colleges together.
And your house was one of the hangouts where they were there for several times,
Yes.
for plays, for swimming, and it was just a wonderful house. It's always great to have a home like that. Mrs. de Longoria, so your daughter was just up here, and we're so glad to see you. So you've been here since what year?
Well, we came in 1947, and my parents had rented one of the Harris cottages. In fact, we were in several of them over the years until they bought a piece of property in Azurest, and they built a home there, which I still reside in. It's one of the smaller homes. Everything else has gotten to be a lot larger around me. But I remember over the years that I think a friend of ours would call, I guess people I grew up with out here, we were known as the Sag Harbor Babies. Now, the Sag Harbor Babies morphed to teenagers, and one of the important things in my life was the beach. And one of the beach things was that we used to play bid whist for hours on the beach.
6-0.
Yes. And after that, when we married and we had our children would join us on the beach, and we spent the afternoon of each day that the sun was high in the sky. And we would stay there until supper time. And their children would get together at night, and they knew they had to be in the house by dark. So that fluctuated. And by August, of course, dark was a lot earlier than in July.
And that's part of the group we were talking about that is so close, the children.
Yes, right.
So it's not the size of your house, but it's the size of your heart. And all of you have such huge hearts. Andrea Cotman, oh yeah, give me some love on that one. If you quote that, give me a little accreditation there. But Andrea Cotman, my son Sam was taking his driving test, and for some reason I didn't have a car, and you were like, let him use mine. And that's the kind of village we have, that we can go in and out of each other's homes, and you are aunts and uncles and to our children. So I want to say thank you for that and for all the years of love. But tell us about when you moved to Sag Harbor, also an Address resident. How many years ago, and you raised your sons and family? Talk about that.
Well, we were here now, this is our 66th year here,
66.
66.
Wow.
And believe me, the house knows it's 66. I came as just a young teenager, and I joined in to the scenario that Pam just described. I learned how to play bid whist. I swam every day. On weekends, we partied. And at that point, we had phones, but it was all party lines. So when you picked up the phone, you had to say, I want to speak to whatever number it is you had. And you had to wait until somebody got off, so you had a line.
Wow.
But on Friday evening, the phone system was rampant with all of the kids who were coming in for the weekend to find out where the party was.
Wow.
And there was one resident, year-round resident, black family, the Frasers, and Karen was an operator. So if she picked up on the line, she could tell people, well, the party's at the Hicks, the party's at the Hicks, so that you weren't running around in the dark looking for the party. But
that's awesome. That's awesome.
I can only say that for me, I always describe for my friends and friends of my children's parents who ask, well, what's the big deal about Sag Harbor for you? And as an adult and having children, I always felt that this was an opportunity for my sons to have a Huckleberry Finn growing up experience. You could not do that in Harlem. You couldn't do it in St. Albans or Brooklyn, even though it's neighborhood. Our children could do exactly what she said. At 6 o'clock, the church bell rang and we got up. And we went home. The kids continued to play until 9 o'clock and walked home. We didn't go to get them. They knew how to get home.
Wow.
They were safe, and everybody's mother was somebody's mother.
That's right. That's right. Which we love. That's what we love. Clotilda Stinson, you are the mother of the president of Sag Harbor Hills Association, and we're so glad to see you. I see you at all the parties, and you always have such a wonderful smile. So let's just give it up for Chloe Stinson today.
Well, thank you so much.
Tell me about your experience out here.
Well, I want to start at the beginning.
It's a half-hour show, so all right. Remember our questions,
I first was introduced to Sag Harbor in the 1950s when I was a teenager. And Bill Pickens was having one of his famous weekend parties. You were invited to the party, but it wasn't for one evening, it was for the entire weekend. And that was my first introduction. Now, Bill and I were friends all our lives. We grew up together in the Bed-Stuyvesant section of Brooklyn, which was a middle-class black community, and we've known each other since we were about 10 or 11 years of age. So we were friends for more than 70 years.
Wow.
Our parents knew each other, and our parents were friends, and we were part of a very tight-knit group of boys and girls in Brooklyn, and some of the other boys and girls in that group have homes here in Sag Harbor. So it has continued, and we really are lifetime friends. We're really family, as others have said. That is the essence, I think, of Sag Harbor. We are family with each other, not just friends.
Wow, that's a good song for us to go out on when we go. So for many of you who are not from here, the name Bill Pickens has been uttered a few times. He was like our unofficial mayor, and there is a video of him up on YouTube. It's Remembrances of Sag Harbor. We did a video with him before he passed in our living room. So we want you to be able to see that as well, because this is living history. Virginia Arrington, they've talked about bid whist a few times, and we've teamed up a couple of times, and we've run a couple of Bostons, I think, together. What other kinds of pastimes do you do now?
Well, I play bridge a couple of times a week, and at the East Hampton Senior Citizen Center. And I've been doing that for a while. And then sometimes I play bid whist, and you are my partner.
That's right. Say it loud. Say it proud. Hello, listen, I'm proud. Ms. Stinson, so you talked about parties, and you talked about, the other day when I greeted you, said we're the elders now. How does it feel to be one of those who we look up to?
Well, it feels wonderful because so many of the young people that are now mothers and fathers of children, and some of those children have graduated college, but I knew the parents when they were young, and they were my daughter's age. And these young people who now have their own families call me mom, and I love it.
I love it too. Mrs. Cotman, you also, and we got permission to call them by their first names. You know, we have to put a handle on it sometimes. So I want to say they gave me permission. So Andrea, so you talked, it doesn't even feel right. Miss Cotman, so you talked about raising your family out here. When I came, you were also the president of the Azurest Property Association. And so how important is it to be a leader if you're in a community and to get involved?
I think it was like a question of growing in the association because it was just the families. And I didn't realize that from the very beginning, at the end of my teen years, doing things in the community was just expected of you.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time my own children came, there was just this whole group of mainly boys, a few girls. Of course, there was Maria. We're not sure if she wasn't the leader of the whole group. But we put them to work for the community. I know my son and the Weber boys, we paid them to clean the beach because it was their beach. So they had to patrol it and pick it up and throw things away. And I think that helped them in knowing that this was a place that they loved and had to take care of. And almost every one of the groups of maybe 10, 12 kids are still here, are still coming, and they'll still walk up behind me and say, hey, Ma, is there something you want me to do? Or X, Y, Z, and Q. And we're all covered because our sons and daughters protect all of us.
Wow, that's awesome. Mrs. DeLongoria, last statement for the day. So how important is it to you for legacy and passing on our homes, our beach to your children and grandchildren? You have 3 generations alive here. So how important is legacy?
Legacy is very, very important. And one of the things that I don't think any of the ladies have mentioned is that we have a little group of ladies sitting on this podium, and we are all a part of a group called the Beach Potatoes.
Okay. Beach potatoes.
Beach Potatoes. We were Sag Harbor babies that morphed into the Beach Potatoes.
Wow.
We raised our children on the beaches, and we still sit at the graciousness of our friend's home, and we still sit on the deck, and we were there last night, in fact.
Oh, wow. I didn't know
Yes,
about
yes,
that
yes.
one. I'm not a potato, I guess. All right. Well, thank you so much. So I'll be potato salad.
How
So
we grow in.
We have to close this segment here. But won't you join me in thanking our queens? This was so awesome, refreshing. Virginia Arrington, Chloe Stinson, Andrea Cotman, and Pamela DeLongoria. Come on, let's give it up. I think we should give them a standing ovation. Come on, somebody. And you can dance your way to the next show. You don't have to sit, you can dance. We are family.